Hey all, here OS Reviews. Some of you guys may remember that a few months back we did a review on an interesting in-ear translation gadget called the Timekettle WT2 Plus. And you can wear it just like wireless buds, but it is purely just a translator that you need to connect to their companion app in order to unlock the various languages. Well, now the company is back with basically their second generation model called the M2, and the difference now is, first of all, the body is a lot more compact. It now has a Type-C port for charging instead of micro USB, but it also can be used for music now. So just like other TWS buds, such as ones from Apple, the AirPods, ones from Samsung, Galaxy Buds, these can be used for music listening in addition to translation when you open up their app. In fact, it now supports Qualcomm's aptX, has a Qualcomm chipset that uses Bluetooth 5.0, and furthermore, it claims that it also supports offline translation now too, which is a very interesting claim. If true, that would definitely be a big selling point compared to the older versions and also many other translation apps that you may have in your phones. Now, when used as regular TWS buds, the controls, which are touch sensitive, are pretty typical. You can skip tracks, play, pause. However, you don't get access to adjusting the volume, although because there are so many functions already baked in, that is, I think, forgivable. Now just taking a closer look at the design of the M2 Timekettle, as aforementioned, it is significantly smaller than the original WT2. You can see it almost looks like a child next to it. The thickness is actually still quite similar, but it's a lot easier to put into a pocket, although it still is going to be larger than some typical TWS bud cases like the Apple AirPods, Redmi AirDots. It still is a bit larger, but overall not too bad. And here it is next to something like the Powerbeat Pros. You can see that the casing is also smaller. The construction material has also been slightly changed. This newer version is made out of a slick, glossy polycarbonate plastic versus on the original, which was more of a matte material. Just like before, it is magnetic and you can pull apart both sides, and they can also stick together like so to prevent you from losing them to grant access to the translation buds. We have the left and right sides labeled. Even the buds themselves are magnetic, so they can be attached into place with a satisfying click, and whenever you pull them out, they will turn on and begin pairing, and then you can snap them into place and they will begin charging. The translation icon here is also an LED light that will tell you when they are being charged up. Now, in terms of battery performance, the buds will last for around 5 to 6 hours on a single go, and with the case, they will last around 30 hours combined. The shape of the buds here, the M2, is also a little bit different from the WT2s. We can see that the WT2s have a more traditional in-ear style for the tips, whereas the M2 here now shares, kind of like the AirPods, a semi-in-ear design. It is a lot easier to put into your ears and to remove, which I think is actually going to be more important from a translator's perspective, because how you use these as translators is basically you are wearing one of them and you're giving the other one to the second person. So since you're sharing the buds to the other person, I think having something like this, which is easier to pop in and out and also to clean, is probably better than something like this, which is made out of a silicone material. It's also significantly smaller than the old ones in terms of the dimensions of the translator, so it's lighter and more comfortable if you are wearing them and listening to music, for example. The side here is still touch sensitive, which you can use, and controlling it is quite sensitive. The application for iOS and Android called Timekettle is still the same as from before, but now it's just been updated with support for the M2 that we can now tap on to pair. And it will also tell us the battery percentage remaining on each side of the bud. Now we have the two sides which represent two different languages. You can choose to change them by tapping on the list here. So for example, there's Chinese, English, French, Spanish, Portuguese, German, Russian, other Southeast Asian languages, Japanese, Korean, Vietnamese, and so on and so forth. This is a full list that we can see down below there, and they can also change it for the left side as well. And by default, it goes into a touch mode. So basically the person who kind of touches their side of the bud first will be able to speak, and then the other side can hear the interpretation that's been translated. I can tap on the settings here to do things like rotate the display. I can also change the font size that's being displayed here to make it larger or smaller. I can also do things like change the playback speed, in addition to the volume that can be manually adjusted. Now, as aforementioned, this is in the touch translation mode. But if I tap on the menu drawer here, I can bring up additional controls, things like a lesson mode. So what this does is you're able to have a continuous stream of translations that's playing back inside of only your ears, both the left and right sides. So this is a new function compared to before, which we didn't see on the WT2s. All you need to do is put your phone, which is connected using Bluetooth, to the front desk where the speaker, the teacher, the presenter is talking, and then that's going to be the microphone picking up the sound and then translated and pushed over to the buds where you can hear in your language. So that's a pretty neat functionality here. The phone is now acting as the microphone translated into the buds, as you can see there. The cloud-based translation engines, which are relying on technologies like Google Translate, Bing, so on and so forth, are actually doing a very good job. You can see the accuracy and speed is quite fast and precise. I can pause it there, but almost immediately you see the translation here pop up over here on the top. The buds are currently in the kind of Chinese translation mode since we're talking in English, but you can choose another language as well. And again, it's almost instantaneous, takes just a split second for the process to function. Other functions here, we also have a history, which basically we're able to kind of play back different recordings that we've made. So if I tap on this, for example, you can actually see the entire thing being kind of spoken out. You can tap to hear it as well. So it's pretty neat. And you can also send this translation result to your social media, to your email, to save it as a backup copy. Now, in the regular touch mode where each person is wearing one of these buds, you can see that it also flips the screen so that if you're holding the phone between two people, you're able to see your side and the other person can still see it in that same position. So holding it like this and two people can both read their respective languages at the same time. What I will say here is it does seem like the offline translation functions are still kind of in development. It's something that I think will be primarily implemented in the app as they have a further software update. Since the version that we're displaying here is just a beta kind of prototype, since the product itself is not official yet. And if we're talking now, nothing is being parsed or recognized on the screen here. The accuracy of the translations, really, it's as good as the WT2s, which were already quite impressive. That part doesn't really need too much new explanation for. About 90 to 95% accurate in terms of getting the meaning between languages translated quite well, especially in the cloud mode that we're testing it out in right now. One other thing I want to point out is as you're wearing these, you can see that the slant here does point the arm a little bit closer to your mouth. So it's, again, going to be pretty optimal for picking up your voice. I found that it was able to recognize my voice without too many problems. Whenever you tap here to speak, there's also a slight chime or a beep, kind of like a bubble sound that gives you a notification or confirmation that you've tapped on this button correctly. Interestingly, it was able to record that entire stream of conversation, as you can see there, but with the internet turned on, all of those previous things that we just said was still stored and kind of parsed and translated. The reason why it has different cloud providers such as Bing, such as Google Translate, is to ensure that if you're traveling to different locations where certain maybe servers or services aren't available, it can still intelligently switch between them to give you the most seamless and fast result. So now we've changed the language between English and Spanish, and we can do another quick test here as it's recognizing our voice. Even from afar here, from the camera, it's still doing a pretty good job. And you can hear kind of the words being spoken, and overall the recognition is being done pretty well. You can read it, everything does still make sense. Overall audio quality is also very good. I think especially the mids and trebles is where these shine. There's not a lot of bass, so if you are a bass head, you'll be a little disappointed by the pure audio quality there. You don't get as much of a thump or kick in the lower frequencies. But the mids are extremely clean, so if you're listening to acoustic tracks, that's really where it shines. Things like speech, things like podcasts is where it kind of comes to life. It's exceptionally clean, and there is almost no hints at all of any static, any hissing, humming, or distortion in the background, even if you listen really closely or turn the volume down. Qualcomm aptX also ensures relatively low latency. You can watch back YouTube videos and there's hardly any lag at all between the video and the audio. The left and right sides are also perfectly connected in my testing. Never really got out of sync with each other, which is great. So that's more or less it for our hands-on review of the Timekettle M2, which is again their newest generation of smart translator buds, this time with a updated aptX chip, support for music listening, as well as a slightly revamped functions to the app, such as the offline mode, which unfortunately isn't ready here immediately, but we'll be keeping an eye on that and hopefully having an update here in the coming days, and the early bird pricing being as low as $69, really similar to other budget TWS buds at that point. I would say that it's definitely a bargain and a steal for all the functions that you're getting on here, and coupled with a pretty unique overall look and design. So again, fingers crossed that we'll have the offline functionality rolled out soon, but even now I would say it's a very compelling pair of wearables that offers translation, offers music, and also a very comfortable, clean aesthetic. You can check out more details if you are interested in the links down below, but for now that's been our video. Thanks for watching here at OS Reviews. That's been the Timekettle W2.